All right, guys. Well, this is always a very, very special treat. Our next guest is Australia's undisputed UFC middleweight champion, taking on Israel Adesanya, UFC 243 in October. He joins us back on the program after a quick trip to the US. The Reaper himself is back in the house. Robert Whittaker, look at you. Thank you so much for joining us on Submission Radio. Good morning.
It's always good to be here, guys.
Always fun chatting with you, man. Really appreciate you giving us the time. And like Dennis mentioned, we saw that you went down to the States for a little bit, took the wife down there, got to enjoy International Fight Week. What was the big trip to the US like for you?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. I was lucky I was able to take my wife because it was such a short trip. I think it was 5 days, like in total. So I was able to take my wife, and we have guys there, connections there, like Sergio Pena, who I do jiu-jitsu with, so that if I do get time, apart from the UFC scheduling that they put me under, I can roll and I can work with those fellas. So it was a great trip. All in all, it was great to get away. We left the kids here, so that's always a good trip.
Nice. Look at you, man. I was gonna ask because I know that I know a few times when you've spoken, like after your wins, like you just get out of Vegas, you get out of there. There's no crazy partying for you. So I was gonna ask if you sort of got a chance to like do some fun things, but you were probably busy training, right? You had the coaches there already.
Yeah. So more or less, the UFC have an itinerary for me whenever I go to these things, and it's pretty full on. It's pretty full on. Plus, I'm one of the few guys that gets. I know there's a lot of people that fly to Europe or fly to the US, and they're like, I don't believe in jet lag. Like, I don't believe in jet lag. It doesn't affect me. It affects me. I believe in it thoroughly. So yeah, I don't sleep on planes. So when I got there, the first day is a write-off. The second day is filled with media. The third day, I try to get some sessions in. Fourth day is usually media again, and then the fifth one, I'm leaving.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. And you're probably flying in a better situation than us. When we do the events, we're like trying to find an empty aisle on an Air United plane. And I'm making deals with some family to see if the father can move over to the back seat so that we could sleep before media. Hey, I was going to say, man, one of the crazy things is, Rob, obviously you're sort of in your own world in Sydney, but when you go over to these international fight weeks, you're kind of hanging around all the champions, all these different fighters that you wouldn't usually hang around. I'm just wondering, what are some of the highlights of sort of hanging around International Fight Week in terms of running into other fighters and having chats with other champions? Because I saw you had a photo with Khabib. I mean, me and Casper met Khabib. He's an intimidating guy, but he was nice. Talk to us through meeting some of these other champions and some of these sort of interactions that you had during the fight week.
I guess, like, first
and foremost... Did you speak to Khabib, or?
Yeah, I did. So, like, I'm not a huge fan of meeting fighters in general, like meeting other fighters and like these International Fight Week and going to events, especially in the US, it's always different for me because we do live here in Australia, like across the world. It's hard. I'm not exposed to it a lot, and I'm very reserved. So I don't get out a lot to go see other fighters. And there's just always tension. I don't know. It's hard to explain because the game we're in is combat, and that makes it very. How do I put it this way? You don't just. It's hard to just win and beat people and then understand that you put a tally on the board. No, it's like to beat and to win your fights, or to beat your opponents, you're trying to inflict harm and try to break down your opponents. So that makes the game a little bit more real, in my opinion. So there's underlying tension regardless, across the board, especially. And then you have teams where this guy may be affiliated with this guy who you fought, or you may have beat a teammate of his, like somewhere down the track, especially when you move to the US. Those guys have a lot of teams, and they have teams with like 3 or 4 fighters in the UFC, maybe more. Whereas in Australia, like with my team, we're still upcoming. There isn't any other UFC fighters in my team yet. Trust me, yet. But so there's that tension as well. And then if there's middleweights, it's like there's going to be tension.
So that was
up.
Guys in other weight classes. That wasn't even getting to middleweights yet.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, exactly that. That's guys in other weight classes, because the teams and affiliations and just all that sort of stuff. It's it's a lot more. There's a lot more to it, and that's just me though. That's just me. Like there are some really social guys out there that can just slide into any scene out at the UFC with any fighter, even a fighter they may have to fight, and just chill out and cruise out and be real chummy. Who's a good example of that is Wonderboy Thompson.
Yeah.
He's a top guy. Like I don't think anyone could have a beef with him. Like he's a legend, and I feel like he could enter any scene and just be cool. You'd be like best mates in like a few minutes. But that's not me. That's not me. I can't play like that.
Sorry, go on.
But in regards to Khabib and Holloway, I spoke to them, and they're just straight guys. They're just really good people. Yeah, like obviously we didn't sit down over dinner and have like a thorough discussion on like why we should like each other. But I like those guys. I think they're good guys, straight guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting one that you mentioned because I almost feel like the other champions don't really get a chance to see you very often. So you're kind of like that guy that everyone's like, hey, look, there's Robert Whittaker. He's the middleweight champion. I wonder what he's like in person. We haven't really seen him around these neck of the woods before. But also, I think there's a lot of respect for what you've done in the division from guys like Khabib. And we were watching another great episode of Grange TV the other day when we caught that story about you and Kelvin having a chat. And one of the things that stood out to us was you mentioned leading to the fight, you didn't really like anything about him. You wouldn't even eat Mexican food. Yeah. Is that true, Rob? Because Mexican food is delicious. So this is
it is delicious, and it was a sacrifice I had to make. It was a sacrifice I had to make. I just couldn't. Yeah, I can't do it. Like it's just who I am. It's just the sort of guy I am. Like and I don't know why I do that. Maybe I'm crazy, but everything is about beating him. It's just him, and everything that he's involved with or enjoys doing or likes doing, I hate doing at that point. So it's just I'm just funny like that. I'm funny like that. I forget who it was, but I like spearfishing. I'm terrible at it, but I enjoy going out there and attempting to get anything. But I remember one time, one of my opponents, Fab, come up to me and goes, "You know who else likes spearfishing?" I think it was Tavares. He goes, "Tavares likes spearfishing." Oh, no. I was like, "Well, you just ruined that for me. I'm never spearfishing again." And I just wrote it off. And that's just how I am. I don't know why I'm like that. It's just is what it is.
So you say funny, but I mean, you've obviously had a lot of success. So, it's obviously something that's working for you. But this is a fascinating revelation because everybody knows you, like, in media day and stuff. You don't talk trash about anyone. I don't think you ever really have. But underneath the surface, there's kind of like this dark side where you and this is the stuff that like we don't know. Like you've always said nice things about Kelvin. Do you do that for every opponent? Because I imagine it must be harder for some guys, right? Like maybe for Israel it's easy, but for a guy like Rafael Natal, I imagine what you even find about those guys. But this is something that you do in order to win the fight, right? It helps you.
Okay, let me clear something up quickly. Just because I don't talk trash and I'm not mouthy and I'm not mouthing off like I'm in the schoolyard, doesn't mean I don't take this for what it is. I am doing everything in my power to break you because we are going to go fight in an octagon. And I don't play this. This isn't a game to me. I treat this as if this will be my last fight ever. And I always have. And I don't need a smack talk to get in that mind frame. I'm already there. Like we're going to go fight to the death in 70 months time. And I'm going to give everything I have. I just don't smack talk though. But don't misinterpret that for me not taking the fight seriously. You can see every one of my opponents when we have the first face off or when we come face to face after the fight's been announced, they know that, okay, this guy isn't playing. I'm not playing. It's not a game.
Yeah, and that's just fascinating, man, because I do think a lot of people sort of misinterpret that because you're such a nice guy. Just quickly, before we do get to Vegas and you stare down with Israel, what are a couple of things that you're not doing ahead of this Israel fight that have been kind of ruined because Israel does them? Is there anything that popped up? I know Mexican food with Calvin. Is there anything with Israel? Posting memes? He never really posted memes, though. That's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, not really. Not really. He
Are you much of a dancer? Do you dance?
No more crump dancing for Rob Whittaker.
Yeah. I've stopped crumping.
Well, you watch Anaheim, though, don't you? You watch a bit of Anaheim. Has he stopped you from
Anime.
watching your Anaheim leading into this fight?
Anaheim.
Anime.
Anime?
Anime? Oh my god!
Wow, that
For
is
Robert Whittaker of all
that is-
people.
that is the weirdest way I've ever heard that said.
It's
Like-
anime. I've been calling it Anaheim for 30 years. What?
Oh
What?
wow.
All right. Well,
That's
there you
great.
go. What do you think of that? Do you still watch your Dragon? You have your own anime that you watch, right? Is he ruined that?
I watch tons. But
Mhm.
I can't give that up. That's like
Imagine there was
should
an opponent that played video games. You'd be screwed.
he should give it up. But yeah. Also, I don't know why everyone calls me a nice guy. To be honest, like, but like I'm not nice just because I'm not a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like I'm just normal. I'm just straight.
Is it annoying to you when they always? Because we call you a nice guy. Because honestly, behind the scenes, you've always been a really good guy to us, personally. And we've heard lots of great stories about the stuff that you do behind the scenes and the person that you are. So that's obviously why we call you a nice guy. But I think a lot of fans will call you a nice guy because I guess you don't really talk trash and you know you're sort of got that warrior spirit. But does it annoy you that people sort of kind of put you in that
Not at all.
category? Like,
It's a compliment. Like,
Yeah.
for sure, it's a compliment. But I feel like my whole thing wasn't to be like I want to be portrayed as this nice guy. I want to go out there and become a saint, or I want to go out there and it's like just do charity work in all my off time. I just don't want to be a shit person, which is funny enough a lot harder in today's day and age than it seems.
For yourself, or like from your own personal experience, or just in general?
No, just in society in general.
Yeah.
Everyone, especially in the MMA game, everyone wants to jump on each other. They want to shit on each other. They want to try and instead of improving and building their own careers or improving the scene, improving the sport themselves, they'd rather shit on everybody around them. You know. Yeah.
I was going to ask, you were talking about stare downs before. What did you see in Israel's eyes when you guys finally got to sort of face off and look into each other's eyes? And do you feel like he had that moment? You mentioned opponents see that you're not playing. Did you see that in his eyes?
Yeah, he definitely saw it. He saw I'm not playing. But he's a smart guy. He's a smart guy with a lot of experience. He already knew I'm not playing. He knew the stakes and he knows how serious this fight is. He knows how hard I'm going to come out. Regardless of what he says, like that's just how it is. You don't get to where he is, you don't get to where he is underestimating everybody. He's had a lot of experience. To be honest, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot that I found out or that I saw because I was ready for it all. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for. I've been training since as soon as I got better from Gaslam. I've been training. I've been in the gym working. As soon as I got better from the surgery. So and I'm hungry. As everyone likes to throw on my face, I haven't fought for over a year, and trust me, that affects me more than everybody else.
Well, sorry, Rob.
Sorry. No, please.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned that, and this is something that I want to get back to Israel in a sec, but because you mentioned it, it's something that fans don't really understand, and you kind of talked about it in Grange TV a little bit, that you haven't fought in a year. What fans don't realize is you didn't get paid for your last fight, right? And as a guy that's got a young family, and we're not saying you're broke or anything like that, obviously you've got a lot of stuff going on, but as a guy that's trying to build a future for his family, you got your kids, the wife, you want to build a good future for them. How sort of stressful is it, the fact that you haven't been able to fight for that year, you haven't been able to get paid for a year, you sort of missed a year out of your career and the ability to earn that money, and then just as you were about to make that money, just as you were about to go in and fight, boom, you have that surgery, don't get paid for the whole lead up into that fight. I mean, from a financial standpoint, that must be also very frustrating for you.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. I think a lot of the fans don't realize that the person who gets affected most by missing fights is me. I don't get paid. I can't move forward in my career. I can't use the skill sets that I've done. I can't pay for all the training that I implemented and did during the camp towards a fight. It's yeah, I am the main person that gets affected by missing fights. So it's not. Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. It's terrible. Now, lucky, I have great people around me, and I have a great circle of coaching staff and friends and like all the people that support me, like my accountant and managers and stuff. Like they're switched on. They're very switched on. So I'm not running out of money before I next fight. I'm not living fight to fight. So yeah, it's terrible, but it is what it is. It's part of the game. You have to expect that sometimes. Moving forward, I would like to fight more often. I would like to fight like 3 to 4 times a year. But just the way it's played out in the last year and a half, 2 years, I haven't been able to do that.
I think the fans, especially the Aussie fans, would love it to see you more active. And I guess that's definitely a tough thing that we can understand that you've been going through for a while now. Just going sort of back to Vegas, I remember when we sat down with you in Adelaide, I want to say around about a year ago, and we spoke to you about meeting Israel for the first time, and, he was still sort of coming up in the division, but it seemed like people already thought, look, one day you guys will meet. And we talked about your first interactions. You just met him. He said that you smelled nice. What is it like now when you guys are around each other? How different is that? I imagine there was way less tension when you guys first ran into each other in the hallway that time.
Yeah. The thing is, I haven't done anything differently. I haven't changed. He's just he's gotten mouthy. Like I guess he had to get the title shot, which he got due to his performances in the octagon and the way he sells his fights, which is all props to him. I think that's great the way he did it. And that's kind of how he sells fights and how he does stuff. But like that's him though. Like I'm not playing like that. If we're not cool. Like you can sell the fight, and I'm happy for you to sell the fight actually. Like I encourage it. but I'm not a part of that little game. We're not cool.
So but by you mentioned like saying you're not cool, like what do you mean? Do you mean like behind the scenes, you're not sort of in on this kind of trash talk thing, or do you mean like we're not cool, like after the fight, like what he says sort of matters? So take us into what you mean by we're not cool.
Yeah, no, like we're not cool as in I'll be civil. Like what am I, an animal? Like I'll be civil around him, but I don't want to talk to him. And yeah, we're not friends.
I wanted to ask you something and sort of give you a chance to sort of, I guess, respond, because something that he said when he was on our program last time was, I guess he's sort of running with the fact that he believes you're not the real champion because you won the interim belt, the title got changed to undisputed when GSP decided to vacate, and he's kind of building a case for himself to enter this fight as an equal champion. And he's referring to it himself as the champion. He doesn't really mention the interim champion. What do you sort of make of this whole, I guess, strategy?
I don't care. Yeah, I don't it doesn't bother me. He can do whatever he wants. There's only going to be one after the date. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think most interim champions just call themselves champions. I think it's what they want to do. Like, but it is what it is. It's that's just, it is what it is. He can call himself whatever he wants.
And it's not like you wouldn't have preferred to fight a GSP. I mean, a lot of people would have wanted to see that fight. So it's not like you were like, hey, let's not fight GSP. I'll just take this title if he vacates. But I'm just wondering, we saw what happened at the press conference, but we know you guys would have been around each other in the back of the arenas, during fight week, in between situations. So did you have any opportunity? Did he run into you? Did he say anything to you off camera? Did you guys have any run-ins outside what we saw on the UFC YouTube channel?
No, we try to we try to stay separated.
Wanted to also ask you because something that I guess something big that's happened when you were on the show last time. You spoke about how you threw your hat in the ring, so to speak, to face Jon Jones at some point, and Israel's obviously expressed his interest in facing Jon Jones somewhere down the line. Him and Jon Jones obviously aren't great friends either. They don't seem cool, but Jon Jones has kind of aligned himself with you, even sort of suggesting that he'd love to train you and help you beat Israel Adesanya. What did you think about that when you saw that and him offering, his services to help train with you?
Yeah, it was cool. I was honored that Jon would extend that hand to me. He's a great fighter. He's a great fighter, and yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
Do you think you'd take him up on his offer? Do you need a Jon Jones in any training camp, or would you want a Jon Jones in any training camp in any kind of way, or do you see it more as I guess publicity sort of on his end?
It might have been publicity. The thing is, he doesn't really need publicity from that. It's more like I have guys that can move like Adesanya now. They can if I need it. And another thing is like Jon lives all the way in the States, and I'm here in Sydney. So yeah, if our paths cross somehow, like I'd love to take him up on some training. I think that'd be great. I think he'd be a great body to move with. But we'll have to wait and see.
Did you guys run into each other during fight week? Obviously, he was busy preparing for his fight, but did you see him in the back? Did you have any conversations with him?
No, we didn't. We didn't come across each other. He was focusing on obviously on his fight that week.
Well, speaking of that fight, just quickly, I mean, what did you make of his fight with Thiago Santos? I know that on Grange TV you mentioned that you saw him winning the fight when you were watching it live, but there have been some people that sort of have come out of the woodwork. A lot of fans thought he looked a little bit slower. Some people are sort of confused at the sort of strategy that he used to win the fight, and there are other people who believe Thiago Santos actually won. What did you think of the Jon Jones that you saw in there?
I thought Jones just I think Jones wanted to showcase his skill set, throw out a lot of flashy stuff. In my opinion, he never looked like he was losing. He never looked like he was losing. He was pushing forward. He was landing like big shots, and he was slowly like dismantling Santos. The credit to Santos is that he didn't allow himself to fall into that pit of despair that I think a lot of other fighters get sucked into. He didn't allow himself to get swept up into like the Jon Jones aura and the flashy fighting that Jon Jones uses to really cripple his opponents. So yeah, credit to Santos. He's a tough guy. He did really well, remarkably well.
It's funny because Jon Jones is offering his services to you, but I don't think he realizes that you're not playing. You're not playing in this game. And so when you watch a fight like that, do you sort of analyze it? Like I said, you threw your hat in the ring to sort of face him potentially one day. Were you analyzing it, and did you sort of see certain things and certain holes where you thought, all right, if this move to 205 ever happens somewhere down the line, here's something I'm seeing that I could capitalize on?
Yeah, no, not yet. Like I was just watching and appreciating the fight for what it was. I'm not trying to dissect every fight ever just in case I have to fight them. No, yeah. I was very appreciative to how Jon does a lot of things well, like a lot of techniques, a lot of moves, a lot of movement patterns that he does really remarkably well. That I'll try and steal off him if I can. But yeah, I was just appreciating a great fight.
It's absolutely fascinating. Now, quickly, before we wrap up, Rob, just want to get your thoughts on the location of this Israel Adesanya fight. Obviously, you know probably as much as we do. It's between Australia and America. A lot of people saying it's likely to be Las Vegas. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that you mentioned it in an interview with a friend of ours, Brett Okamoto from ESPN, that sometimes almost fighting in the States, there's a little bit less pressure in the sense that, you don't have your family there, you don't have your friends there. People aren't sort of calling on you to do a bunch of stuff. And even though we know you're not doing it yourself and you've got a management team around you, there's a bit more pressure sort of being the Aussie champion, defending in Australia. Just explain to us, is there a benefit to sort of fighting overseas for yourself sometimes in the sense that, you can just go over there, you can get the fight done, you can come back home? We're over fighting, for example, in Sydney or in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's exactly as you said. Like there's there's that element where I can just go overseas, focus on myself. It's usually just me and a tight knit crew, and just get the work done. So that in itself makes traveling to fight like a little bit easier in some respects, because if I fight in Melbourne or in Australia, it's there's like a lot of fans, a lot of people want to go. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of pressures that don't seem aren't there initially, but they creep up on you. So yeah, and there's usually a lot more media involved with fighting show, which is great. To have the support of Australia, like for my career is like, it's great. It really is. But yeah, it's just like, it is what it is. Like both have their pros and their cons.
You mentioned stuff that creeps up on you. I'm just wondering, what do you mean by stuff that creeps up on you? And also, I know they'd kill us if we don't ask you. Do you have any updates on where it might be? Do you know? Are you any closer? Has the UFC been in touch? Would be any closer as to where the fight might take place?
Nah, no idea. I wish. It's funny. I usually find out after everyone else does. I find out on Instagram. Yeah. So yeah. So like, in terms of things that creep on, it's just like the pressures of the crowd, the pressures of the fans. It just creeps up on you. Like everyone's talking about it. Everyone's talking about you. Everyone's wishing you well, and it's funny.
As we let you go, Rob, just really quickly, wanted to mention you've obviously got a training program. It's the GAP program. Just talk to us a little bit about that, just as we let you go, for those who haven't heard of it.
Yeah, so the GAP program is running now. We've launched our first one. The GAP program is Gracie Aboriginal Pathways Program. We try to use jiu-jitsu, like through Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We try to use jiu-jitsu as a conduit for education to try and get a lot of people who come from an Indigenous background and in remote communities, or in New South Wales at the moment. We're hoping to move it further out, but we're hoping we bring them in. And if you told me that like I could either study fitness in a classroom or study fitness on the mats, you know where you'd find me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great lure. It's a great way to get people to get involved with education in the fitness aspect. And another great benefit is you get to like almost join my team for the block. Like, you're on the same mats with me. Usually our times cross a lot of the time. So
oh, wow.
You guys are like the guys are always in the mats or watching the sessions, and sometimes they have input, like Fab will get some suggestive input from the students and see why we do certain things the way we do it. And it's you don't get that insight or that look elsewise.
I love it because you were overseas and you jump on your social media and you're like, just want to give a shout out to the GAP program. And I mean, you're in Las Vegas during International Fight Week and you're shouting out those guys. That must be a huge deal for those guys, being like, all right, it's possible to do something with our lives. Look, the champ has given us a shout out from the biggest fight week in the world. I mean, I was like, man, I wish I was a part of the GAP program. But yeah, Robert Whittaker doing great things for the community. Guys, make sure to follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Robert Whittaker MMA. He defends his title against Israel Adesanya, UFC 243. We're hoping in Australia, but who knows? And of course, check out Grange TV. It's an underrated program where Rob has some really good interviews and some really good insights with a bunch of athletes and obviously himself. Make sure to check it out. It's one of the sneakiest shows going around, Rob. So we're trying to push it out there for you, buddy. Don't worry. We'll get it out there. You're taking over the world slowly. Thank you so much for coming to the program, champ.
Thanks for having me, guys.